Welcome back to Too Young To Grieve. And today I'm joined by Freddie, a content creator, a runner, and someone who's been very open about his grief journey from such a young age. And Freddie doesn't just talk about grief and loss as something that is as it is, we know what loss is like, but he's someone that thinks that we can build on from that, rebuild our lives and find purpose again. So thank you so much, Freddie, for being here today and coming down and joining me.
No, thank you. That was a very, very nice introduction. Thank you. I don't know what to say.
I always get people say it sounds a bit like a LinkedIn post about them, so they're going to put it in their bio.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does sound like a LinkedIn post, actually. It sounds very, very professional, very proper.
I'm glad. I'm not usually professional, so I always like the intro to be a bit like that. But before we dive into things, I saw something on your account. So you have a content creation account, and it said that you're an Arsenal fan, and I am a Tottenham fan.
Are you?
So I just want to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think that we were doomed from birth? Did we draw the short straw with those?
Yeah, I think we can both kind of join forces in our. Although you guys did win the Europa League last year, so you have won a title more recently than us, but it is the forever team of disappointments. Although I have to say, I think we're changing that tide at Arsenal. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're going to do anything this year because I don't want to jinx it, but yeah, I think we're turning that tide. But then, Spurs obviously won the Europa League last year, so they have got that over us at the moment.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. I appreciate it. But yeah, I am scared about you this season. But is that like a family thing then? Was it like, because my support is my dad?
Yeah. So my dad was an Arsenal fan. So
Okay.
I grew up, obviously he was supporting them, and then I grew up supporting them because he supported them. And I remember when I was younger, which I'm sure we're going to touch on in a bit, before he died, I remember vividly kind of watching like the FA Cup final. We were living in Singapore at the time, so it was the FA Cup final, so it would have been on at maybe like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, which for us was 10 p.m, 11 p.m, and I was probably 9 or 10, and my dad maybe allowed me to stay up to watch it. And I remember watching that. It was one where we beat Man United on penalties, where we played dreadfully, but we still managed to win it. And I remember watching that with him, and that's probably one of my last like footballing memories I have with him, was watching that FA Cup until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, which for me at the time was like, wow, I'm up gone 11. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But because it was obviously, and we were in the cup and it was a special occasion. But yeah, that's probably one of the memories I have with him, was watching football.
Yeah, I love that. I saw on your page that you've been going to the Emirates a bit more.
Yeah.
Probably at a good time to start going as well. Things are
Yeah.
going quite well. So
Yes.
no, that was nice to see. I obviously went a lot with my dad to Tottenham and things like that. And I feel like it does, I don't know about you, but I feel like it sort of gives you that connection as well when you're in the ground and things. It is a nice little memory, like you said.
It is, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I'm trying to do this year, because this year's been 20 years since he died, so I'm trying to do this year is my year of doing stuff my dad enjoyed. So if it's going to an Arsenal, if it's going to countries he liked, if it's eating food he liked, all those sorts of things. I've not thought of the entire list yet. They'll probably come to me as the year goes by, but one of them is trying to go to the Arsenal more this year, and then hopefully more in the future as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think doing things that sort of bring you closer together as such, at the start, it can be a bit difficult. You might not want to go to places because, it reminds you of them and things like that. But now you're taking a different approach that you want to get that connection and things like that. So I love that. Well, let's dive in. Just tell people your story in a way that you'd like to share it, really. Then just give people a bit of background about yourself.
Okay. So yeah, as Luke, you very kindly mentioned, my name's Freddie. I have an Instagram account that I created last year, where I talk about what it's like to lose your parents before the age of 23. I lost my dad even when I was 12, and my mum when I was 23. So it's 20 years this year since my dad died, which actually we're recording this on what day is it today? Tuesday. Last Wednesday was 20 years since my dad died, and tomorrow will be 9 years since my mum died. So, and I created, for years, essentially since my mum died, I kind of, obviously, I knew that my parents had died. I didn't really do anything actively about it to kind of stop me thinking and to manage my grief. There was one way, which was running, which I'm sure we'll touch on later, but and I never really openly spoke about it in a situation, if it's publicly or privately. And then last January, actually, my wife said that she thinks that would be a good idea for me to kind of start an Instagram page and talk about it openly and talk about my feelings of grief openly. So I did, and since then, I have found that I'm probably in the best place I've ever been in terms of my grief, because I've talked about it so openly. Before I opened that, as I said, I didn't really talk about it. Whereas now, I'll talk to anyone about it. If you'd asked me this time last year if I'd be sat in this podcast studio talking about my parents dying so openly, I probably would have just said, not a chance is that going to happen. So that's kind of been who I am and why I'm here today, essentially.
Yeah. No, and I think I was going to touch upon the social media content side of things. I know I saw that you mentioned that your wife got you into it, and you just mentioned it there. Do you feel like that's something that has kind of helped you? Because like obviously people do therapy, people do journaling, things like that. But has talking about it online helped you in your journey, would you say?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I think I was very good at kind of managing it just inwardly, by making sure I've always kind of been fit and healthy, always gone to the gym, always eaten well, always kind of run. And that was kind of my way of thinking, managing it inwardly. But then I never really talked about the period of what life was like without them and what my 20s were like without that sort of guidance from your parents. And I never really talked about what it was like after my dad died 20 years ago and I was 12. So, and now I talk about it and things actually come back to me that I'd forgotten about, to talk about, or things that I'd forgotten that had happened in my life. And that's helps me then heal, because then I can think about those and I can talk about them, and then overall that just makes me manage it a lot better. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because it's not, we both obviously do content, so we know how it is, but it's not saying that people going through grief, start posting your grief content on social media at all. But it kind of shows that when you do talk about it in whatever way, whether it's with a friend, a family member, if you do make content, whatever you do, go to therapy, it kind of shows that just speaking about it rather than keeping it bottled up definitely helps.
Yeah.
And obviously that's on a larger scale with social media and content.
Yeah.
But it definitely does help just get it out rather than keep it in.
It's also, as you said, not just social media, it's also really helped when it comes to talking to friends about it. Now, I've had open conversations now with friends that I've had for years that I've never really spoken about what it's like with them. And now we'll meet up with friends, we'll go to the pub, we'll go for dinner, we'll go for a walk, and they will ask me questions about what it's like to lose my parents that I don't think, one, I maybe would not have wanted to bring it up. And then also maybe I think that they thought, oh, maybe Freddie doesn't want to talk about that. Whereas now we have those conversations because I've started talking about it in such an open forum. But it doesn't have to be like that. It can just be just talking to your friends, just as I said, down the pub, or just talking to your friends on the phone if you need to talk about something. I think for me, talking has been, people say about it all the time, is about talk about how you're feeling and you'll feel better. But actually getting people to do that is a completely different kind of ball game. But yeah, for me, talking about it has been the biggest thing that's helped me.
Definitely. I mean, you lost your parents a lot younger than I did, especially your dad. But even myself, like, I just kept it bottled up for a few years, and only more recently started talking actually about it. And I can echo the fact that you said, like, just speaking about it, just getting it out to someone, whoever you trust, is such a useful thing to do with your grief rather than just keeping it inside. But yeah, just touching upon that, obviously, you lost your dad quite young. You lost your mum also at a very young age. And I like to say that the 20s, I'm still in my 20s. It's the period where, a lot of things go on, maybe meeting partners, getting new jobs, figuring life out. So how actually was that for you, that period?
It was really tough. So for me, like, for example, my wife never met either of my parents. Well, she wouldn't have met my dad because that was 20 years ago, but my mum was 9 years ago and she's not met either of my parents. And I would do anything for her to be able to have a chance to meet them. And then also the opportunity, for them to meet them, and then to take that person to meet them for the first time. If it's you're going to propose, if you're getting married, if it's buying a house, if it's getting a new job, if it's moving to a new country, to a new city, all those sorts of things where I know a lot of people, some people don't obviously have that opportunity, but a lot of people do kind of lean on their parents to be that kind of North Star for them, to give them some sort of guidance, because they've been there and done it before. Like we're going through life not knowing, having not done these parts of our lives before, whereas your parents have done them, and they might be able to give you some guidance on. Obviously, you don't have to follow exactly what they've done, but they're there to support you in those kind of big decisions. And I didn't have any parents that do that for me, which was incredibly tough, because when something really happy happens to you or something even sad happens to you, the first thing you want to do is call your parents, text your parents, tell them about it, because you're either proud of the moment that's happened to you, or you know what, actually, I just need your support, and they're not there, and they weren't there, and it was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, even just, I've still got my mum, but with my dad, like, there's things that, you know, my mum doesn't get in terms of like football and stuff like that. And I'd love to obviously talk about that. So it's a very tough thing. And I'm thank you for sharing that, because obviously I know it's not easy, like, to have lost both your parents, especially in that period. And I feel like it changes us quite a bit. And I'm sure you have some thoughts on that in terms of that period where you were, you know, things like weddings, things like that. How did you sort of manage those things without being able to contact them?
Well, I think, and I think you're going to touch on them in a minute, but the letters that my mum wrote, which she wrote at kind of really important milestones in my life, did really help. And I think a part of me, just when I was going through those decisions in life and thinking about what to do, obviously at the end of the day, it's still my decision to do those things. Like proposing to my wife was my decision to do. But then I would just maybe think, if in that moment would my parents be proud of that decision that I'm making, which a lot of time I think they probably would be. But yeah, I think because you can't talk to them about it, you might just think, okay, actually, would they agree with what I'm designed to do? And a lot of time, yes, they would, because I've not made like huge decisions in my life that would need them to tell me that they weren't good. So I think it's maybe just thinking if that decision, all those big life milestones, they'd be proud of, and I think they probably would be.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sure that they would be, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, especially now with yourself, you know, the way that you present yourself online, and obviously meeting you today, I can tell that, you know, it shaped you in different types of ways. So yeah, I think it's nice to, and like you said about the letters and things like that, we'll touch upon, but yeah, I think having those things there as well to touch back to is definitely something useful. In terms of like navigating those things like relationships, weddings, things like that, what would you say was like the most difficult part about it then for you?
Just them not being there. I think it was the most difficult thing. Because like, for example, at our wedding, you have a top table, and who usually goes on the top table? It's usually your best man, your maid of honor, and then both sets of parents. It's kind of usually how it goes. Obviously, things different weddings. So I think for me, it was just not having them there, because you just want them there. Like, you just want them to be a part of those big days and big milestones of your life, because they're your parents, and they brought you up, and you have this amazing like love and affection for them. And when they're not there, it's obviously it's noticeable. So for me, it was just a case of just wanting them to have been there was probably the toughest thing. It's just to be able just to have danced on the dance floor with my mum at my wedding, or to have when I was 18, have a beer and have a pint in a pub with my dad when I was 18. All these sorts of things that you see other people do that you haven't been able to do, and beforehand, that would probably that did really like affect me, because I just wanted them to be there. I just wanted them to be around, but obviously they couldn't be because they died. So it's them just not being there. It's probably the toughest things. Yeah,
100%. Do you think that it's made you appreciate other things a lot more than, you know, like you said about the beer with your dad type of thing? Has it made you appreciate like smaller things now a lot more, would you say?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's very stereotypical to say I appreciate the smaller things in life now, but they both died. Now that they both died, but I think I definitely have. But I think also it's made me want to make sure that the life that I live is as full as I possibly can. Because my dad died. I can't remember the exact ages. I know it was really bad off the top of my head, but they both died. My dad died especially young, and then my mum died. Obviously, 20 years later, still way too young. But I see kind of the fact that they both died before their lives had essentially had the fullest chance to live, and they packed a huge amount in their life. Like when we were younger, we lived in Singapore, Hong Kong, and New Zealand, all before I was the age of 11. With my dad's job took us there, and they travelled all over the world, and they got married 10 years before they even had children. So they got married and then decided we're just going to go and travel and enjoy ourselves for 10 years before we have children. And I look at the life that they lived in the short period that they had here, and for me, I think, right, I'm going to try and make sure I do something very similar and live my life to the absolute fullest and make memories that I'll remember for the rest of my life, because you just don't know how long you've got. So yeah, for me, it's definitely appreciating the smaller things, but also just making sure that I live life to the absolute fullest.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant as well, because obviously people might look from the outside and think it's such a terrible thing to happen, which it is, but the way that you've used it and turned almost that pain into purpose, as people say, is such a nice thing to see. You've not let it destroy your life. You've built other things since then and living your life to the full, which is, I think, a great way to do it, and just help their memories live on, basically, essentially. Yeah, so in regards to the ages and things like that, it is very young. So how do you think, has your life been different compared to maybe those around you? Would you say your version of your 20s compared to others, or even your 30s now?
I think, yeah, it has been different in the sense that I haven't had any parents around, but it probably was a part of how I managed my grief in my 20s, was I still wanted to make sure I lived the life that my other 20s friends in my 20s were also living their life. So yeah, I think it's different in the sense that I didn't have any parents, but then I did try and make sure that I still had that life at that period, which I actually maybe probably detriment to maybe how I managed my grief in my 20s, because maybe I should have actually just maybe sat back and just thought, actually, what do I need out of this period? Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy myself, didn't mean I had a wonderful time. I met my wife in my 20s, we bought our first house in our 20s, all those sorts of things. So yeah, it doesn't mean I missed out, and doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it, but maybe I could have maybe felt about different ways to kind of look after myself in that period.
Would you recommend for someone who is in their 20s and maybe lost a parent or both, how would you say that your journey kind of changed as you went through it, and maybe they're at the start of their journey, how would you sort of advise them, in your opinion? Of course, everyone's different.
So I think when I was 23 and my mum died, I probably thought to myself that grief would be done within a few years. I probably thought, you know what, it will be tough for a few years, and then it will go, and I feel better. I wouldn't really think about it. It'll just be a period of my life that happened. But I found over time, and I've understand this more as I've gone on, that grief doesn't go. It just gets easier. So grief can be all-consuming immediately after someone dies, which it was after my mum died. And then for years, you will still grieve, but then what will happen is that the grieving will get easier, and it might just come at big milestones. Like last week, after 20 years after my dad died, I still was grieving him, but I was grieving the situations that he'd missed in my life because he hadn't been here, like getting married, watching me go to university, watching me grow up, all those sorts of things. And I imagine tomorrow, when it's the 9th anniversary of my mum dying, that maybe those thoughts will come back to me again. But I don't grieve every day now like I used to, but I just grieve in those big milestones, and it's just important to kind of accept that those things might happen. And also, I think when you first lose someone and you're grieving, you are doing the best you can in that moment in time. Lots of people you'll see online about how how they're managing their grief and how they're doing this super stuff and all the time, and it's amazing, and all this sort of stuff that they're doing, and you're watching people do 7 ultramarathons in 7 days, and it's all in memory of someone who they've lost, and you're sat there maybe just watching them on an Instagram reel, and you're thinking, why am I not doing that? Why am I not running 7 ultramarathons in 7 days. But that's because, one, everyone grieves differently. Social media isn't the truth. And 3, you are doing the best you can in that moment. And I think that's the most important thing to know, is that everyone grieves differently. Sorry. Everyone grieves differently. And it's important to manage how you do that for yourself, rather than worrying about what other people are either one telling you to do or what you think you should be doing, because you're doing the best you can in that moment.
Yeah, 100%. As the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. It's been said a million times, but it can be used for so many different things. And grief, definitely, like you said, everyone grieves differently. So however you're feeling today, whatever you're doing for it, that's your way of doing it. And take your time and feel what you have to feel. You don't have to run 7 ultra marathons, but maybe that's something for you to think about. I know you got the marathon coming up, but
I don't think 7 ultra marathons in 7 days is anything on my radar anytime soon.
But that's it. Like, you don't have to do things like that. If that's something that helps you cope with your grief, for sure, exercise. You can't. I mean, I was gonna say it can't be bad, but if you do 7 ultra marathons in 7 days, it could lead to some sort of injury.
I'm not sure that's a happy thing to do, to be honest.
But I think that's how people deal with it differently, don't they? Coping and that side of things. I know that I did loads of marathons, high roxes at the start and things. Still do, but it's just a way, an outlet, isn't it? So yeah, in regards to that, like, when you first lost your parents, compared to the Freddie that's sitting here today, what would you say is different?
Well, I think I'm older. I'm better at running. Maybe that's one thing I could say is different to when my parents died, or my mum died especially. But I think the difference person is now, and so I'm very much more aware of what I need to do now to manage my grief and how to look after myself compared to what I did when my mum died. So that's probably, I would say, the main thing, is that I'm just so much more aware now than I used to be. But that's because at the time I thought I knew what I needed and what I needed to do, but I didn't. Whereas now I'm in a place, I'm probably the happiest now I've ever been in nearly 9 years. And that's because now I understand exactly what I need to manage my grief and to be in how I feel now. But it's taken time, taken so much time to get here. As I said, I thought it would be really quick, and I thought it'd take a couple of years and then it would be over. But I've realised now that it's not. So now I've realised what I need to do to make sure that for the rest of the time I am good with my grief.
And I think that's such a useful thing for people to hear, because people might think, like, you know, the stages of grief and things like that, you know, you think, oh, it's going to be maybe a year, 2 years, or even shorter. Some people might think, you know, why is my grief not gone? And you just saying that there is like evidence that, you know, it's not quick. It can take as long as it needs for you. Some people might be quicker than others. Some people it might take years. But if you just keep going and doing your best each day and navigating your grief, you will get to a spot, like you said, where you're the happiest you've ever been. And even the fact that you're talking on a podcast so openly about it and online so openly, it shows like how far you've come. So that's a credit to yourself, and, you know, sticking through it and showing up. So and obviously now running the marathon as well. So that's another milestone for you. But do you feel like, because it was such a young age, do you feel like it's made you grow up faster? Is it? Yes.
Yeah. I think, especially, I would say so much when my dad died, because I was still a teenager and you're still kind of, my mum was still around and you're still living kind of teenage lives, and you're in school and everything. You're told what to do, not on what to think, really. You're told what to do until basically you finish. If you go to university, you finish university at the age of 21, 22. You're basically told exactly what to do. So you kind of looked after, and especially after my dad died, because I was so young, like there's the amount of support that my sister and I received was massive, because we were so young. But then fast forward 11 years later, and you're 23 years old, and you lose your mum, you lose your last parent. You have to do all of that on your own afterwards. If it's going through the will, if it's doing the funeral, all those sorts of things you have to do on your own now, because that's your last parent. Obviously you can lean on people who are close to you, and we did do exactly that, But then after that comes dealing with the will, dealing with selling the house, dealing with all the stuff that comes with losing someone, which you would usually maybe do in your 40s, 50s, 60s. And by that time, you've got so much life experience that stuff doesn't feel alien to you, doesn't feel really like a surprise to you, because you've got friends who've done it and they'll tell you about it. And you'll and there's the support there and so on. But when you're that age and you have to start doing that stuff, you kind of do have to. I wouldn't say grow up. I would say maybe you have to mature in that situation, because there's no other way, because no one else is going to go, oh, you know what, we'll organise that all for you. We'll sort those things out for you because you're young. You have to do that on your own. And then I think. Then also, as I mentioned earlier, about not having that support for them as well. Like you could rely on them for the support, and that would help when you're going through life, thinking about stuff, going through life decisions, so on and so forth. But then you have to start making decisions on your own as well. Does kind of mature you. So yeah, absolutely. I think it did definitely make me suddenly think about stuff which my friends and other people may not have to think about until their 40s, 50s, 60s, as I was saying. So yeah, it definitely did make me kind of grow up quite quickly.
Do you think that with that side of things, where you talk about the wills, you talk about things that no one should really have to deal with at that type of age, do you feel like there could be maybe more out there in terms of education or help with maybe grief? Like you mentioned, you went through school at a time where you lost your dad. Like, do you feel like there's a bit more that can be done, even in the workplace, maybe?
Yeah, I definitely. I think there is. I think we were very unfortunately fortunate, which I think is the right way around. How to say that? When my mum died, especially, that we were given kind of a warning. So she was originally diagnosed. Both my parents died from cancer, and my mum was first. She first had breast cancer before my dad had brain tumor. She got rid of her breast cancer, and then my dad got brain tumor basically as she was getting rid of her breast cancer, and then he died. And then my mum, when she had a mastectomy, she was told it had 1% chance of ever returning. 6 years later, it returned. And then, so that was when I was 16, 17. And then she was given 6 months to live at that point, when she pushed on for another 6 years and battled on. And then she was given... She died in January of 2017. Yes. And in that November of 2016, she was basically given 6 months to live. She was told, there's nothing else we can do for you now. This is it. So very fortunately, then that meant that we could get solicitors round. She could talk to us about it. We could be all prepared for the moment that she died and be ready for it. But I can't imagine being someone that age and say your parent dies from a sudden cardiac arrest or heart attack or something like that. You suddenly have this all thrust upon you to organise with no preparation whatsoever, unless they're really foreshadowing and think I should probably talk to them about this stuff, which lots of people don't do, because a lot of people don't like talking about death. Yeah. So yeah, I do think there needs to do more. I think probably from the school age, I would start telling people about kind of what happens after someone died, just so they're more aware. I think in workplaces, there could be more to kind of help with with grieving and stuff like that. So yeah, I do think there needs to be more. There is a very handy website which you can go on when someone dies. Basically, you tell one website and it will tell all the websites, all governmental websites that need to be told. Okay. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it is out there. Okay. But I do think there needs to be more to kind of support people to understand what that process looks like after someone dies. Definitely. Yeah,
100%. Only reason I asked is because I feel like I had a comment the other day about it and how, I think it was in the US, they said like some countries you get time off work a lot of time, you just crack on and get back to it. And I was at uni when I lost my dad, so I don't know about the work side of things, but I think it's you get a mandatory sort of 2 weeks, 3 weeks type of thing, depending on your company, which it kind of sums up grief, doesn't it? People think 2 weeks, the funeral's done, it's all over, but yeah, it just keeps showing up in different ways as we've discussed. Yeah. So hopefully more.
Yeah, I think more needs to be done. I will say that my employer is very good, and they did actually give me compassionate leave last Wednesday for 20th anniversary, which is very good. And a lot of places probably wouldn't do that. But yeah, I think there's some situations that I've heard from people about what their companies have done when someone close to them has died has been appalling.
Yeah.
And I do think more needs to be done, 100%. Which I'm actually. There's a charity called It's Time Charity, which they are working with young people who lose parents, and they are starting a program and a push to kind of change bereavement in the workplace, which I'm joining them on to help with, because I agree with it completely. Then it's something that needs to change. So hopefully something will happen in the future. Not say it's going to be. Not going to say it's going to be me. But hopefully something will happen in the future where that will change.
Yeah, 100%. I've heard of It's Time as well, and I love the work that they're doing. So it's brilliant to see that, as much as social media can be bad at times and the things on there, at least there is some good that's coming from it as well. And in particular in the grief side of things, is even people who haven't been through it, maybe getting more, understanding of it and how they can support their friends through it. Because you might be the same. I was like one of the first in my friendship group to ever go through it. And I was talking to some of my friends the other day about it, and they didn't really understand me and like certain things that I was doing, maybe not turning up to things or being a bit quieter. Did you ever sort of experience that at all? Like where you sort of felt a bit misunderstood at points, maybe not going to things or behaving in different ways?
I think probably, and I think most of the time it probably happened when I would maybe have a few too many drinks, and then suddenly I would just get really upset, and I would just be like crying if it was at a house party or if it was like at a bar or something when I was younger. And it's not so much being misunderstood, but I think that for me was the outlet that I had at the time to kind of to deal with my grief. And I think that was probably the ones where my friends would notice it the most, because we'd suddenly be like having a few drinks, having a laugh, and suddenly it would just switch. And then I started reading that relationship with alcohol was probably not overly the best thing, especially when your grief is kind of more apparent. To then be drinking on top of that isn't probably the best thing to do. And I realised that's probably something I should stop. Doesn't mean I don't drink, but it just means I now understand it a bit more if I'm feeling that way not to. So that was probably the biggest one. I have to say my friends, especially after my mum died, were just superb. I can't fault them at all. The way they all rallied around and supported me, and supported my sister as well, was just unbelievable support. That was exactly what I needed at the time.
Yeah. No, and that's brilliant to hear. I can say the exact same about my friends. They might have not understood it as much, and like you say, they're just there to support, and whatever that means. And I think that's all we ask for as grievers. We're not asking, for anyone to fix us. Just be there for us if you can, and even if that's just going to grab a coffee or something, like the smallest thing. So yeah, that's really, really nice to hear. I think because I feel like some people can feel like they haven't been understood by others and maybe don't have the support around them. So just knowing that there are communities or charities or whatever just to give that support is such a big thing for grief, because no one should have to go through it alone. So having those support systems is brilliant. Just touching upon like that side of things and what you mentioned before about having to deal with the wills and things like that. It's quite a lot to deal with at a young age, and you've clearly done really well, like where you are now. So what do you think your parents would think of how you've dealt with this? Like, how proud would they be of you?
I'd like to think that they would be proud. It's one of the things that I talked about when I first created the page. I think I've always kind of been chasing the knowledge that they're proud of me. Which I know I'm never going to get, which I know it's impossible for me to get that. But I think in life, I know it's not true for everyone, but most people, I think, are just want to make their parents proud. And they want that level of like approval from their parents. But that's because that all comes from a young age, and that's everything that comes with that. Not going to need to touch on that, but I'd like to think that they would be proud of me. I really would. But I'd like to think that they would be proud of me.
Yeah, No, I think they definitely would be, but I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like I'm always doing things, and a lot of my life now, you know, comes from just trying to make my dad proud and things like that.
Yeah.
And obviously my mum as well. But, you know, you kind of always just want to keep going and know that they would be proud. Obviously we can't, but it is nice knowing that. I think when people tell you they would be proud, and I'm going to tell you now, I think they would definitely be proud of you. Like even, like I say, just turning up here and speaking, I think is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it, but also I think they'd be proud of you for doing it and inspiring a lot of people, definitely, for sure.
Thank you.
In regards to what we touched upon earlier, it kind of links as well. I don't know if your mum might have said something in those letters that you mentioned. Would you be able to share a bit about not the actual letters, you don't have to share what's in them, but just about those letters that I saw on your Instagram? How did that sort of come about?
So, I can't remember exactly when my mum wrote them. I can't remember if she wrote them when she was given 6 months to live, the second time, not the first time. Or she wrote them within the 6 years that she had secondary cancer and knew she was going to die. But she wrote my sister and I 3 separate letters. One to open when we felt like it, one to open when we got married, and one to open when we had a child. I've opened 2 of those 3, getting married and when I felt like it. My sister's opened all 3 of them. And I can't imagine how she must have felt writing those. Because it must be so tough to have to write something that you know someone's never going to read whilst you're alive.
Yeah.
And you're never going to see them or see them read your words and how they reacted. But to have the kind of foresight to know that those might really help my sister and I, was just, I can't thank her more enough, because both of the ones I've written were exactly what I needed to hear in those moments that I opened them. When I felt like it, I've actually gone back and read that one. I've actually read both of them back again since, because I don't think it's just to open it. If you felt like it, it's not just to open it once when you felt like it. It's to open it when you feel like it over and over and over again. And just her words really comforted me in the moments that she probably knew that I might be missing her the most. And those, especially those last 2, getting married and when you're having a child, I think those are moments where those milestones I talked about earlier, which you will probably be thinking about your parents, and I will and I definitely was thinking about my parents when I got married, because they weren't there, and reading that letter from her was just really what I needed in that moment, and I can't thank her enough for having the ability to write those for us.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that idea. Obviously, it's looking back, it's like, oh, why do I have to read this? Why can't you just be here? But I can't imagine, because I don't know if I have any. Or maybe my dad's got a little surprise in his locker. I don't know.
Maybe when Spurs win the league.
Well, I'll be waiting a long time for that. But maybe when I get married or something, we'll see. But what was the feeling like when you sort of opened it? Maybe the one on your wedding day. How?
I just cried.
Yeah,
I just cried because the words that she wrote were just perfect for that moment. It wasn't too much, it wasn't too little. It was just exactly what I would have wanted to hear from her. And I think the letters from the wedding was more from her and my dad. I think the way she wrote them, the way she wrote that one, was exactly what I would have wanted to hear from them if they'd been alive. And I just cried for both of them. It was exactly what I needed, and those tears they weren't sad tears, especially the wedding day one. They were happy tears, because I wasn't sad that she wasn't there, which I was, but I was happy that I was having this thing, this tangible thing to read on my wedding day. Yeah,
I can imagine it's such a nice feeling, nice in a different way of saying it, to open a letter on your wedding day and have that. You know, some people might not get that, and that's a shame, but I can imagine having it really did help on that day, because like we said before, you know, the anniversaries, the milestones, things like that, probably the hardest things to go through when you're grieving. So having that maybe brought that little bit of connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like it has both of those? You know, the one that you said you open when you feel like it, the wedding one, and then obviously one to come, hopefully, is helping you navigate the grief and life without your mum?
At those milestones, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they would be tough, and they still were tough, and even without the letters. But then I think the letters make that like easier. Like days without the letters, like death anniversaries or birthdays or Mother's Days or Father's Days, will always be tough. And I don't have letters to open on those days, but doesn't mean that the letters didn't help on those on those big milestones. So yeah, I think they absolutely did. They did absolutely help in that moment, 100%.
Yeah, I can imagine it would definitely bring a lot of tears, like you say.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice ones and also sad ones. But would you like recommend? Obviously, you touched upon it before, how people don't often think about it. You don't want to think about, losing someone you love. But would you recommend maybe, setting things up? I've seen someone has recorded podcasts with his dad when he was passing away. Do you feel like people should do a bit more beforehand just to have that in case?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough to say what people should do because everyone deals with those situations differently. Some people might not want to have those because for them actually hearing that person's voice is actually too much.
Yeah.
Some people, like you mentioned, the person doing the podcast with their dad, might be really helpful for them. I think it really depends on the person. So I think it's difficult to kind of say this is what you should do because everyone grieves differently. It helped me, and it helped my sister, but some people might have got those letters and might think I don't think I could ever open them. I don't want to read what they had to say because it's too tough for me. So I think it's difficult to say what is the right thing to do in that situation, and it's just mainly to do whatever feels right for them, I think.
Yeah, I love that answer because I think it links back to grief, and everyone deals with things differently. Some people, like you said, might not even want to open the letter if they even did have it. So just doing what works for you and what feels right for you. That's the best thing that anyone can do when it comes to grief, just in terms of preparing for it and things like that. Yeah, do what feels right for you, I guess.
Absolutely.
Just to touch upon something that you're going to be doing in April, I believe.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I've done it. I've run marathons, for my dad and charities and things like that. Do you want to just share a bit about your, upcoming event and how that came about? And
yep. So I've actually run London Marathon before.
Okay.
I ran it in 2018. The kind of the backstory as to why I ran it back then was my mum died in the January, and obviously the marathon used to be in the May. And from January until May, obviously I was going through everything that came afterwards. It was touched upon with wills, funerals, etc., etc. And I remember turning on the TV on the Sunday that the marathon was on, and just watching these people run something for a challenge. But at the time, everyone's really good at running has just absolutely exploded over the last couple of years. Like the London Marathon this year had 1.2 million people in the ballot, which is crazy. But back then it was kind of something which like a few people did, and not everyone was doing it. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to do that next year whilst I was watching it. So then the next day, when the applications opened for charity applications, I went to cancer research because I wanted to raise money. I wanted to do it, something that I could raise money in memory of my parents. So I signed up to do cancer research. And then I got in that September. And then from that September to the May next year, I was training. I was raising money for charity, for cancer research, ran the marathon, decided afterwards I'd never do it again because it was just awful.
Yeah. I can back that up.
And the day itself was great. Like the weather was 24 degrees. It was a lovely day for everyone who was watching. For me, running 24 degrees,
not the same for you.
Not the same for me. All my friends were there having drinks and having beers, and I was there running this marathon.
Did you have a little sip along the way?
Not along the way. Afterwards I did. But they had a great day, and I was running 26.2 miles in 24-degree heat around London. I have to say, London Marathon is great for the atmosphere and people are fantastic. But then I finished it and I said to myself, I'm never, ever, ever going to do this again. And then for ages after that, I stopped running, mainly just because I went back to the gym and running wasn't really something that I was looking to do again. I also really badly did something to my knee during the marathon as well, so that's kind of stopped me. But then about 4 or 5 years later, I decided to pick up running again. And that really kind of helped me with my grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized why I think I was doing so well back then was because I was running and I was clearing my head, and those endorphins that come from running. And when I picked up running again, I started to feel better again. And I just realized that actually running is probably the biggest tool for me. It's not the biggest tool for everyone, but for me, it's the biggest tool for me to manage my grief. And then I thought to myself, when the applications were open last summer, oh, maybe I could do that. Maybe I'll do London Marathon again next year. So found Cancer Research, still taking applications, applied for it again, and then I managed to get in. So yeah, I'm really quite looking forward to it.
You've done well to get in as well. That's a very tough thing.
I know so much more about how to look after myself from health and fitness wise now than I did when I was 24. Which is going to help. But I'm raising money for Cancer Research again. The race is on, I think, the 27th. It was last weekend of April. Training started in earnest last weekend. And yeah, I'm really quite looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really, really, really nice experience.
Definitely. Hopefully it's a bit better weather.
Yes.
And
yeah, a little bit
not
cooler
too
would
hot
be nice.
though, as you said before.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not raining, and hopefully it's not above 18 degrees.
Yeah. But I love the fact that you're doing it for Cancer Research as well. That's a charity close to my heart. So I appreciate you raising funds for that as well. How is the training going? Is it tough in this type of weather?
The last few ones have been fine because it's been that kind of 1 or 2 degrees sunshine, cold. As long as you wear enough clothes, it's actually quite enjoyable because it's not a lot of wind and it's good. But it's more when you start getting those 3-4 degrees. It's windy, it's rainy, and you've got to go run 24 kilometers on a Saturday morning, and you really don't want to. But then I think the fact that I'm raising money for Cancer Research, and for me, when I'm running, I tend to think about my parents a lot, which then helps me with my grief, but then also kind of pushes me because I'm thinking I'm doing this for them in memory of them. So it can get tough, but then I have those sort of things that I think about to help me get through them.
I was going to ask you about that when you first started running. You mentioned it was quite close to when your mum passed away, and now obviously a few years later, would you say that when you first did the marathon, it was more like as people do, they do like an event, they run because they just want to get that grief out somehow? Would you say now your relationship with it is maybe a bit better now, rather than maybe running away from something, you're running towards something, you've got the purpose, you've got the Cancer Research, things like that? How would you say your running journey shifted?
So I would say the first time I did the marathon, I was exactly as you said, I was running away from my grief. I was putting myself a target of something to do, to focus my mind on maybe not grieving properly. And I maybe thought I was probably running to get through my grief, but I actually probably look back now and realize I probably was just masking the fact that I really needed to grieve properly. But here was something that I was doing that I could push myself towards and forget about the grief in its entirety. Obviously it was there, it was going to be there, but to kind of to not focus on it completely as I probably should have done. Whereas this time I'm running because I know why I'm running. I'm running in memory of my parents. I'm running because I know that running really helps me with my grief. And as you said, I'm running, excusing the pun, I'm running towards grief and running towards something rather than running away from it. Definitely. Yeah,
I think that's brilliant. You're facing it and just doing something that this time, you're like, I'm doing this for them and I'm making them proud. As much as you would have made them proud before, now you've got a different sort of mindset with it, I take. So would you say that helps in terms of like the actual, does it give you a little bit of extra boost when you're doing, because no one wants to run 30 kilometers and then go into 42k in the actual marathon. So how does that help in your training?
It does. I have like a playlist that of songs that I have on when I run, and they're a complete mixture of songs. And some of them in there are songs which remind me of my parents, which I put in there on purpose because if I'm running and it's getting tough and I really don't want to keep doing it, a song will come on that will just bring back a memory. Like my mum and dad are big Elton John fans, And I have memories of me waking up in the middle of the night because they've come back from somewhere and they've had a few too many drinks and they're singing an Elton John song at the top of their lungs at 2 o'clock in the morning, and their kids are asleep upstairs and they have no care in the world. It's great. And I'll be running and that song will come on. It will bring back really happy memories that I've got of them, which then I'll be like, oh yeah, actually this is a breeze. Like not a breeze, maybe not a breeze, but this is not easy, but it's I can do this because look at what my parents kind of went through.
Yeah.
And all the chemotherapy trips and the surgeries and the doctor's appointments and looking after 2 children and all the sorts of things that they did that I can easily run. Not easily, but I can definitely do this. And yeah, it kind of just reminds me that that I can do this. Yeah.
Would you say that is something, like, as much as we all hate grief, would you say that not just in running but in life in general, is that a quality that the grief has given you to just keep driving and keep pursuing things, in the sense that I have similar thoughts that I'm struggling here? No, actually, my dad went through much worse. I can just keep going and I can keep, making him proud. Is that something that you use in a lot of things as well?
Yeah. I think it goes back to your question earlier about if I think if my parents are proud of me, because I'm still chasing that they're proud of me, that feeling that I wish I could have. And yeah, I always want to I always like them to think that they would be proud of me. So doing this stuff and doing the London Marathon is definitely something that I'm doing, as well as raising money for cancer research, because I don't want to, if I can support them in any way I can to make sure no one kind of goes through the same thing that my sister and I did, then I will do that. But yeah, I'm definitely, a lot of stuff I do is to kind of just to make them proud. Definitely.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think it kind of comes with the journey through grief, doesn't it? At the start, it's not something like that. You sort of think, oh, I can't really get through this and things. But over time, as you said, it doesn't go, but we do get stronger and we're better at carrying it in ways and using it almost as like fuel, whether that's fuel to run, whether that's fuel to in your work, in your personal life. So I definitely agree with what you say. I do the same. I use it and just try and make the most of it as such. I saw recently a quote that I just wanted to touch upon quickly by Ken Burns, and it was talking about the half-life of grief is endless. And I only heard it the other day and I was like, wow, what are your thoughts on
that? Yes, I think, as you said earlier, grief never goes away. And I think that's one of the things that, as I said earlier, that I struggled with, is I always just thought I would get over it and life would just continue, but it just doesn't, and life and grief is always going to be there. But someone actually said to me the other day, someone messaged me on Instagram and they said something really that kind of really profoundly kind of resonated with me. Grief isn't a bad thing, because grief shows that you loved someone or someone loved you. And how can you ever forget about that person who loved you or you loved? Because why should you have to? They're such a big, important part of your life that they're just never they're not gonna go away, because you had so many wonderful memories of them that you want to remember. And remembering those memories is a grief format in itself. So for me, I just think I completely agree with that statement. But yeah, it's just that grief just doesn't go away, but that's because why should it?
Yeah.
It's also, it's not a bad thing. It can be a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. It's because you loved that person or they loved you, and that's why you miss them.
I love that, because I think people could interpret that quote in a negative way, but it is, as people say, grief is love with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So it's just a beautiful way to look at it, that it might not go, but why should it?
Yeah,
it's love. It's the love, the deep love that you had for those people.
Yeah.
I would love to talk for so much longer. I think there's so much more we can talk about, but I have one more question for you that I always ask guests when they come on. And it is, if someone listening right now is really struggling, they feel like they'll never feel okay again after grief, what's one thing that you would want them to know?
That it does get easier. It might not feel like it ever will, but it does get easier over time. And that I think if someone had told that to me when my mum died, it would have really helped me. Because it does get easier. It doesn't mean it'll ever go away. That's also important to remember. But it does get easier, and just to look after yourself. And sorry, this is more than one thing. I'm mumbling on. To look after yourself, and also that you are doing the best that you can do at that moment in time that you are grieving. You're doing the best that you can do.
I love that. Thank you so much for trusting us with everything that you shared today.
Thank you.
Finishing on that. Just for everyone that is listening today, where can they find you on social media? And
So
your
it's
accounts?
just Instagram. My Instagram account is F_Oscar_R.
Perfect. Give Freddie a follow, because he has some really useful stuff on grief and will definitely help you on your journey. So thank you very much for listening today. And again, Freddie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your perspectives.
Thank you.